point, we know how to calculate slope. We know how to rearrange our terms in standard form. We know how to tell if an equation is linear or not. So now what we're going to do is start graphing linear equations using their X and Y intercepts. So the X and Y intercepts are the points at which the graph crosses the axis. So the y-intercept crosses the y-axis when x is 0. The x-intercept crosses the x-axis when y is 0. So the opposite part of the ordered pair is 0 when you calculate your point. So to find the x-intercept, you plug 0 in for y. To find the y-intercept, you plug 0 in for x. There is no yawning in here. It's okay. It's just contagious. You're going to make the rest of us fun. Alright, so if you were actually listening to the song, there are 3 ways we can graph lines. We can use the slope and the y-intercept. We can use the x-intercept and the y-intercept and connect our points. So we are going to be focusing on both of those 2 strategies. So again, we understand what slope is. It's rate of change. We're going to get an idea of what the x and y-intercepts are in this next example. So to calculate the x and y-intercept, you're going to plug in the 0 at the other part of the equation. So go ahead and plug in 0 for x and 0 for y. One at a time though, and solve. Whoops. Okay, so what we're going to do for the remaining examples is to graph those equations and to find our x and y-intercepts. So the x and y-intercept occurs when the opposing variable is 0. So let's get our x-intercept. So to get the x-intercept, you plug 0 in for y and solve for x. To get rid of multiplication by a fraction, you multiply by its reciprocal. So since we're multiplying x by -4/3, we're going to multiply by -3/4. And a negative times a negative is a positive. So we get x is equal to a positive 6/4. We're going to do the same. Yes. So to get the x-intercept, you solve by plugging y = 0 in to the original equation. And then to get the y-intercept, you're going to plug x = 0 in and then solve for y. You will, but the directions are going to ask you to find the intercepts and graph the line. So you still have to do both. So you get y = 2. So the x-intercept and the y-intercept are points on the graph. So this is like the point 6/4, 0, and this is the point 0, 2. So you may not want to plot the fraction, but you could plot 0/2. And then someone asked, can we still use res over run? Yay, yeah, you can most certainly do that. So in number 1, you can see the slope, right? What's the slope of the line? So remember, slope's always multiplied to the x, and we're going to talk a lot more about that tomorrow. That's why we're kind of doing the x and y-intercepts and just plotting their points today. But it would be -4/3. So you can either plot your x and y-intercept, or you can use the slope and go down 4 and over 3. So there's my x-intercept too. When you graph a line, make sure you always have arrows pointing in opposing directions, because the domain and range of a line is always all reals. Let's find our x-intercept, meaning y is equal to 0. Zero times 4/3 is 0. So if your x-intercept is 0, then your y-intercept is also 0. So what that means is that this graph is going through 0, 0. So my x-intercept and y-intercept are at 0, 0. And then you have to use the slope, which is up 3 and right 4. You could also go down 3 and left 4. So let's do 2 more graphs. This equation in number 3 is in standard form. So standard form is the easier form to find your x and y-intercepts, because one is always going to zero out the other. So you plug x equals and y equals 0 in for the opposing intercept. So to find the x-intercept, you plug 0 in for y. And we get that the x-intercept is -2. To get the y-intercept, you plug 0 in for x. And we still get that it's -2. But again, what that means is that this is the point -2, 0. And this is the point 0, -2. Because they're different variables. So you just have to be careful about understanding that ordered pair. So plot the point -2, 0. So that's over here to the left. Plot the point 0, -2, which is down here. And then connect your lines to get your graph. If you recall, yesterday we learned how to rewrite all equations in standard form. And again, standard form is the easier form to find your intercepts. So you could actually rewrite this in standard form without fractions if you wanted. Or you can solve it as is. So you could add the 1/2 x to the other side. And then multiply everything by 2 to get rid of your fractions. And standard form is x plus 2y equals 1. And then you could find your x-intercept and y-intercept using that equation. So we get 1, 0 and 0, 1/2. So connect your 2 points and draw in the arrow for your line. So for your homework today, I only need you to plot the x-intercept, the y-intercept, and connect them. You do need to show the work for your x and y-intercepts. Your homework is only those first couple questions. So again, make sure you are kind of plotting correctly because so you have 8 problems for tonight. So find your x-intercept, y-intercept, and graph them. Yes. Yes. No, go ahead. All right, so for your homework, it's going to be exactly sort of like our notes. So we have y equals that negative 8x minus 4. So I labeled standard form below it for you because, again, it's easier to do these from standard form. So to get that equation in standard form, you're just going to add 8x to the other side from yesterday's lesson. So you get 8x plus y equals negative 4. And then find your x-intercept by plugging in y equals 0. So that's 8x plus 0 equals negative 4. So you have 8x equals negative 4. And then divide both sides by 8. And x equals negative 1/2. So as a point, it's always x comma y, so it's negative 1/2 comma 0. The y-intercept is when x equals 0. So it's 8 times 0 plus y equals negative 4. Anything times 0 is 0, so that cancels. So the y-intercept is negative 4. So as a point, the y-intercept is always 0, comma, a number. And then we would graph these. So you'd go down 4 to plot your y-intercept. And then your x-intercept is left, negative 1/2. So you'd plot between the 2 boxes. And then just connect the 2 dots with a line and arrows.